Hello, hello, everyone joining. I am going to do a second attempt now, going live on Instagram. Welcome, this is Natasha Edwina. This is the Goddess Vibrations, the Spiritual Sexual Empowerment Show, going live late today, and I'll tell you why. We had some technical difficulties. It is the new moon eclipse, and some things got stirred up in me with this new moon eclipse energy, and I have a superpower. My superpower is freezing electronics, and things stop working around me. And it gets even more so if I'm feeling intense energy. So that could be irritation or any kind of strong emotion. And so I was supposed to go live at 7 p.m. and I was at a new moon ceremony with Soul Tribe, and there were two problems. The tribe gathering went long, very long, and technology wasn't working. So I am home now, ready to talk to all of y'all. And I want to talk about this new moon eclipse energy, and also related to that, a new model for relationships. And isn't it hilarious that I'm here by myself? I haven't done a solo episode since my very first episode of this show. I can't remember what number we're on now, but the one episode where I'm talking about a new model for relationships and the irony, right? So anyway, what I want to bring up, it does have to do with some of the stuff that was stirred with me this evening too. And before we talk about this new model of relationships and healthy relationships, it's, oh, hey, Nikita. It's important to look at relationship systems, okay? And so a lot of us have, it's part of being human to suffer damage in relationships or in relationship systems or in our families of origin. And one of the things that was stirred for me, because this new moon eclipse is about breaking patterns, about letting things go, about no longer repeating patterns. And I've done a lot of my own therapy work, personal growth work, every kind of personal development stuff you can do. I've done it. I feel like after, my fourth decade now. Fifth decade, fourth decade. And so when you're doing that healing work and you feel like you've healed an issue and you keep ending up in these similar patterns, you keep noticing these similar patterns, right? What's going on? And hey, Vanessa, thanks for joining. So for me, what came up was being a kid in a big chaotic family, and a lot of mid-trauma things happening, and the caretakers not noticing what was going on with me. And I'm almost a little hesitant to say this. I've been thinking about this as I jumped on, because I love my parents and I have a beautiful relationship with my parents now. Hey, Trish. And so nice to see you. Thank you for joining. And they have done a lot of healing work around our relationships, and we continue to do that, and I'm so proud of them, and I'm so blessed to have the parents that I have. And when I look back to some of the things that happened when I was a kid, I can see now, especially being a trained psychotherapist and trained in family systems work and all of this, I can see what they had on their plate, the stressors, the traumas, the intergenerational traumas. So the things that come down from past generations. And I wouldn't want that. I wouldn't want to be in their position. And so I really, truly believe that people do the best they can, given the resources they have and the situation that, they came into. And so I want to just clarify that. But what ended up happening, I'll just share one piece of a story, is I almost died, because I got very, very sick and I was dying, and nobody was realizing that I was sick, even though I was saying I was sick, even though I hadn't had anything to eat in a couple weeks, really, except for half of a hot dog. What was happening is my appendix had burst. It had burst, and it was somehow I don't know how, by the grace of God, it sealed itself up again inside of my abdominal cavity and kept the poisons from leaking to my bloodstream and killing me. It would have killed me within 20 minutes if it hadn't sealed up. I don't know how it resealed itself. I've looked in research papers and medical literature to see if this has happened. I've seen one other story where this has happened to somebody, but it's very rare that this happens. And it was getting ready to burst again. So I was walking around with appendicitis for 2 weeks, and a burst appendix and then a resealed appendix, and it was getting ready to burst again. So my abdominal cavity was swollen. I was limping. I couldn't walk anymore at a certain point, and I had dreams that I was dying, and I had a dream that I was reaching out for help and I was falling into this black hole, and my whole family was around me and they were like, bye. And it terrified me. And I woke up and I was crying, and I asked my mom, I begged her, please, can I go to the hospital tomorrow? So finally, they took me to the hospital, and the doctor saw right away that I had to go into emergency surgery. But the pain was so bad at that point that I was moving in and out of consciousness, and they finally gave me morphine. So the last thing I remember was the thing going over my mouth and just blacking out, no recollection of anything. And the next thing that I remember is feeling naked and feeling something sticky on my chest. And I realized that must have been where they taped, the breathing tubes and whatnot so that they could perform surgery. And then being a 13-year-old girl at the time, I was extremely embarrassed to know that there was a bunch of people looking at me naked. And that was my first thought when I came awake, was shame. But then I realized a little bit later, my mom came in and she was very, very upset. And she just looked white as a sheet, and she was crying. And I was like, what's going on? What's wrong? And she told me that they came through and they told her halfway through that they didn't think I was going to survive the surgery because it was everywhere. The poison was everywhere. They had to take out my internal organs and hose them off basically, and then put them back inside of me. And I spent the rest of that summer with a drainage tube hanging out of a hole in my abdomen. And I spent the summer at my grandma's house where, she doted on me and took care of me. Now, I share that story because that's how serious it can be when you're not noticing what's going on with somebody around you, when you're not noticing the person that you're in partnership with, you're not noticing what's going on with the children around you, right? You're not noticing what's going on in your family systems. And especially in this culture where women, children, these folks are told to be silent and told to just, be in their place. And I was a shy kid, so I'll own that. Like, I didn't speak up very much, but I was saying, like, I'm hurting. Please take me in. But when you are so overwhelmed with your own pain, with your own trauma, with your own chaos, with your own, whatever's going on in your life, that takes up all of your energy, and you literally cannot see what's going on with someone else. And so I'm really, really clear that for me, I would like to help people heal so that they can notice what's going on with another, because we can't heal relationships and we can't heal society until we can sit with somebody else's pain. And to be able to sit with somebody else's pain, we have to be able to move through our own. And we have to be able to at least be healed enough, or be willing to be sort of in the same space of healing this pain, right? And that is relationship. And perhaps if we had healthier romantic relationships, there wouldn't be as much family pain either, right? Because whatever's happening between the couple, the energy that's dysfunctional between the couple filters down to the children, and they're going to act out that energy and those symptoms. So you see how it's all interrelated. And I'll tell you what, I tried to leave the profession of family therapy at least 5 or 6 times, because it's not easy. It's not fun. I mean, it's gratifying to be able to help people, but it's not an easygoing job. I was a bartender for many, many years. That's a fun job, right? It's also has its difficult pieces, but it's pretty carefree, and you go home with a bunch of cash, and you work. If you don't want to work, you don't work, whatever. But it's a tough profession to be in, and I tried to leave it many times because of that, the low pay and the intense amount of energy that it requires. But I always found myself back there again. And I'm very clear under this new moon eclipse that understanding these family systems is part of my purpose to help people heal relationships. Okay. That being said, I don't do traditional family therapy anymore. I did that for many, many years. I don't do traditional couples therapy really anymore. I'm working on a different paradigm, a more holistic paradigm. I don't want to be boxed in by that traditional work. And this is not to say that that's not valuable. It is. So if you have your therapist and you're going to them, that's amazing. I think that's really good work, but I'm trying to work a little bit bigger. And one of the things that I'm doing to help heal these relationships is a mind body skills group. It's a small, intimate group, 10 to 11 people tops, no more than that, because otherwise we start to lose the safety and the intimacy. And we meet for 2 hours every week, and we work through those traumas. We create, it's a safe container. We create the space for people to share, to do that work, for that work to come up, okay, and to transmute that, and to be aware of these family dynamics. And just being in the group like that, in a very structured, safe environment, you are practicing seeing other people along with yourself. You actually learn the skill to be healing your own pain along with other people, okay? So that's one of the things that I'm offering. I offered it right when COVID shut down. I had 2 rounds going. I'm going to be offering it again in the new year, next month. But let's talk about now romantic relationships, switch gears a little bit. And I'm probably going to keep this live a little bit shorter tonight, more so than usual, because we're going later. I'm getting hungry. You're probably getting hungry if you've been waiting to see this. Hey, Terry, nice to see you. But romantic relationships, a new paradigm for romantic relationships. When you are free, okay, because let me just tell you first how you attract your partner. Whether it's a healthy, good relationship or a not so good relationship, you attract your partner because they hold some kind of healing, some energetic complement to you. So this is why when you do your healing work, if your partner doesn't come with you to do that healing work, you often will break up because they're no longer a complement. But if you haven't done any healing work, and then you attract somebody, usually you're attracting somebody that reminds you of your caretakers, your father or your mother, or both of them usually, in good ways and bad ways. And so we get triggered by these things that they do, these behaviors, these reactions. That is, they're not conscious of what they're doing. They just had a similar family dynamic, and then, you both complement, you both are playing the other role of their parent, right? Norma's saying, I love you. Thank you. I love you too. So when you meet this other person that plays that complement, it can cause a lot of arguing and frustration towards your partner, but the real work is with your parents. This is why I say, I don't have any complaints about my parents right now. We do our work. We talk. I set boundaries and I tell them how I'm feeling. It doesn't always go over well, and there's many times where they could have chosen to just not listen and just write me off and say, you're crazy or whatever else, but they don't. They continue to stay connected with me and continue to try to understand what's going on with me, right? And because of that, because we've done that work, we're in a very good place. So when you do that work with your family of origin, it allows you to have healthier relationships. Now, it's no surprise that when I was going through my divorce, I also set boundaries with other people in my family, in my extended family, where got to a point where there's a certain level of behavior, certain behaviors that I no longer was there for. And that's what we're in right now with this eclipse energy. If there's ongoing patterns, because this is a big one, like we're breaking patterns from decades, if not more. This is a big one. It's breaking that up, shaking that up, and then creating something new. So if there's a cycle or a pattern that keeps repeating in your relationships, your life that you're done with, now is the time just to let it go. And if you need some resources, maybe you want to work with me. If you don't want to work with me, please still contact me, because I will try to direct you to somebody that can help you, whether it's somebody that's a better personality fit or financial fit, or I just feel like they're more specialized in that certain area. Please reach out, because I will direct you that way. And I do that all the time. People contact me all the time on Instagram asking, I don't know what to do. Please know that I will send you in the right direction if it's not a fit to work with me. But anyway, breaking those cycles frees you up to try to do something new. And when you start doing something new, it's going to be uncomfortable. It doesn't feel good. It feels awkward. It feels weird. It feels, you feel like out of your element, all of this stuff, but it's really important work. And when we start to heal that family of origin stuff, we have better relationships, which are more loving, more compassionate, more communicative. And then what happens? We change society. We start creating a different family life cycle where people aren't walking around with so much trauma and so much pain, right? I'll just give you an example. I was on a dating app, and this man was saying some things to me that I just felt like there was an underlying level of aggression. And I hadn't done anything to him. This was my first time chatting with him, right? And I thought, man, I don't understand why he's mad at me. And I realized he's not mad at me. I'm just a woman. So he had his own traumas, his own anger, his own frustration, and whatever I am, woman or white woman or blonde woman or blue-eyed woman or whatever it was that I represented to him, it triggered something in him, and he was going to give me some of that aggression. But I was very clear with him even, and I was compassionate and gentle in the way that I shared it with him, that I'm not there. I wasn't there for that. Like, I have a lot of love. I've done my healing work. I have a lot of love to give, and I was there to just overflow with love. And I'm not there to be somebody's punching bag or somebody's blank slate to throw their shit onto. Like, I'm a therapist. You can do that to me if you're going to pay me, right? But not in human interaction. So once you get to that point of being clear of what you're no longer going to tolerate, you don't even have to get mad about it. I was just aware of, like, man, my energy level has shifted. My joy has shifted because of this other person's pain. And that's not good. Like, I'm not tolerating that. And so how do you set a boundary with that? And I just named it. He said, you're probably right. I think there is a lot of aggression underlying, and that wasn't my intention. And I'm like, okay, all right, well, thank you very much. And I dipped out unmatched with the conversation. I don't wish him any harm. I hope he didn't feel more rejection after that, but I wasn't there for that. And so you can do that in every relationship. You can do it in friendships. You can do it in work relationships. You can do it with your family of origin, with your parents, you can even do it with your children. Yes, you still have to care for them and provide their needs, but there's times when my daughter will speak to me and say something that hurts. It really hurts. It feels like a dagger, and she's just speaking out of her own irritation or whatever. We all do it, right? We all say things that we wish we could take back. But I tell her, hey, if I had a friend that spoke to me like that, I wouldn't keep them around as a friend. And I want to have a good relationship with you. So that hurt me. I felt that in my heart when you said that. And I'll tell you why that might have triggered me a bit. And I talk it out with her, and she can choose to say, keep being sassy. She's a preteen, or actually a teen now, she's 13. Or, she can choose to learn sensitivity or learn compassion toward how her words impact another person. And again, she's not wrong. She was going through a moment, and I'm not wrong for feeling triggered. It's about how you move through that little bump together, right? Again, this group that I do, you learn the skills to move through those sorts of things, and you bring them back to the group the next week so that you can process through. But anyway, so you learn these good skills, you create a healthier romantic relationship system, and then you start to you create, it's a system of always creating love, and you're overflowing with love because you're being love, you're being compassionate, you're being considerate, these sorts of things. And then let's talk about the institution of marriage. I have a little bit of a maybe a little bit of a bias because I deal with a lot of dysfunctional. Well, let me just tell you this. Every family system is dysfunctional. My professor taught me this. She said, every family is dysfunctional. You just have to pick your dysfunction. So of course there's different levels, but there's no perfect family out there, right? It's just about which ones you can tolerate and which one you choose to match with to do your healing work together. So again, there's no perfect relationship. You're imperfect humans moving through together. So now I got sidetracked talking about family and relationship dysfunction. I forgot what I was going to say. Something about, marriage. Yeah, so I might be a little bit biased, but when marriage first started, you have to look at the origins of these things. It was a legal agreement that allowed a man to own a woman. He owned a woman, and yes, there was dowry and all of that stuff, because in him owning her, which is a little bit, just a little bit removed from like cattle or whatever else, in him owning her, she was then taken care of, right? Because women, it's not that they couldn't work, they just weren't allowed to really be out and making money. Some women managed to slip through the cracks, and become career women regardless, and they were the black sheep or whatever else. But when you look at a system that began because it was owning another person, and up until I don't know, the 40s, like for sure, it was absolutely legal to rape your wife if she wasn't in the mood. It was absolutely legal to spank her in physical violence, if she misbehaved, this sort of thing. In the 70s, my mom is only 22 years older than me. And in the 70s, when she got married, my dad wasn't around, and she wanted to buy some furniture, and she had cash to buy furniture, and she wasn't even allowed to buy furniture in the small town furniture store without the permission of her husband. And she had to have my uncle step in and pretend to be her husband so that she had permission to actually spend that much money and buy furniture. That was in the late 70s, folks. So when we think about where marriage came from, maybe that's not the way that you practice it or that you entered into it this day and age, but there's still those resonances, because we're talking about intergenerational traumas, right? So those things come down, and there's things that are still happening in society that have those energies in them, right? And so I don't personally believe in getting a third party, the state, involved in romance, in a romantic partnership. Now, I do believe in a spiritual commitment. I do believe in creating a business together, and then maybe you create a business contract. And maybe, and I would say the other exception is if one person makes a lot more money than the other, or has a job that means that they have to pick up and travel as a family unit, then it makes sense to have a legal marriage, because then it protects the person who is not out there making income, because they are entitled to half of that income because they're also doing the work. Just like, back in the day when women were owned, they were expected to do the cooking, the cleaning, providing sex, all of these things for the husband. That was basically how she earned her keep, which sounds like, we even saying those words, like I'm like, oh, like yuck, right? To even say that. But this is still the institution that was based on. So knowing that, how are you creating different relationships? And please don't get mad at me. I'm not telling you not to get legally married. I'm just saying this is my own personal choice. I would never make a decision for you, and you have to follow your heart and to know what's best for you. But what I am interested in is, how do we create a partnership that we can have that security, that marriage, a legal binding contract offered, but still gives us the freedom and the independence, right? And so this is a lot of Uranus and Taurus themes too, since we're talking about astrological energies today. Uranus is the planet of surprise, shakeups. This whole eclipse right now is like shakeup energy, breaking up old patterns. That's what's happening with Uranus and Taurus. It moved into Taurus in 2018. And it moves out in 2026. Its work will be done, but it's shaking up things that Taurus rules, which is food, which is food and farming, the earth, which is the divine feminine. The Taurus is represented by the cow, which is like the divine feminine. It's finances. So you see the stuff with cryptocurrency, and obviously we're going through an economic crisis right now, followed by probably, we're going to probably see some crisis in the food system pretty soon. This is all expected if you follow astrology. But in 2018, when this first moved in, and by the way, I should mention, I'm also a Taurus, so it's affecting me more intensely than most. And I'm on April 24th Taurus, so we are just barely into this transit. So it's like pushing down on me right now. And believe me, I'm feeling it. I'm being squeezed. So I'm feeling a lot of this energy, and this is why I like to speak about it too. So basically shaking these things up. So I started in 2018 to start to think about, what would this ideal relationship be if we're to have a more equal relationship that works no matter what your culture is, that works no matter what your gender is, that works no matter what your sexuality is. Now, with gender roles, you can choose your gender roles. I'm not saying don't have a gender role, but if there's a certain, like, you like being the homemaker or the caretaker, that's amazing, because you're choosing that. You're not having that chosen for you. If you like being the provider, that's great. You're choosing that. You're not having that chosen for you. And the key is matching with somebody who is interested in those same gender roles, right? But how do you have a relationship that doesn't expect that? And along with these breaking of patterns that's happening right now, we've been subconsciously programmed to expect a certain kind of relationship, whether it's the way that legal marriage started, whether it's the church and just different religious expectations, or some of the worst are the Hollywood movies of the romantic comedies, or there's always a similar theme. It's like this damsel in distress being rescued, and all of her dreams come true when Prince Charming shows up. And that's not the way that it works, but it's programmed into our subconscious, right? And then we add that to some of the economic, the parity. Like we don't have economic parity between the genders yet. There's still a wage gap. There's still an orgasm gap. There's not equality, and those two things are related. There's still not as many women represented in government and science, not because they don't know how to do it or they can't do it, but because they were never expected, or it wasn't open for them to do that, right? Warren Buffett says that too. He says he has, which if you probably already know, but he's one of the wealthiest men on the planet, and also humanitarian. And he says that he has two sisters that were much wiser than him, smarter than him, better looking than him, but he's the one that became successful, wealthy, because he was raised with this idea that the world was his oyster, and his sisters were raised with the idea that they had to marry well, right? So he's tapped into that. Norma saying it's like we have been intoxicated with this idea. Yeah, absolutely. Not only intoxicated, but it's the same as the family of origin stuff, because when you grow up with something it's repetition. So what's in the subconscious is repetition. So it's seeing your parents do the same thing over and over again, seeing the members of your family doing the same thing over and over again, catching yourself in the same patterns over and over again. That is programming your subconscious. And you're pretty much fully cooked by the time you're about age 9 or 10, by the way, before you're even aware of what's going on. And so this is why I do hypnosis, to break that up. It's breaking up that pattern, creating a new reality. It's very powerful work because it goes very deep. But Hollywood movies are doing it. Churches, religions, all this stuff is doing it too. And so it's time to really look and see, what kind of relationship do I want to be in? And there's no wrong answer. It's no wrong answer, because it's whatever that you want to be in. But how do we create the security without the marriage contract that's oppressive, or without the marriage contract that says, okay, I own you and your genitals and your body and your attention and your future career path for the next 60 years till death do us part, right? That's usually in the marriage vows, until death do us part. I own you. We're doing this together. It's kind of scary to go into that contract knowing that you're probably going to change some, right? You're going to change some over the decades. And this is why it's hard for me, because I change really fast. I got all kinds of Pluto and transformation all over my birth chart. Like, I grow and change, all these evolving shit's coming my way. Even tonight, I went live an hour late because my plans didn't work out tonight. I did my best, but I still showed up. I'm flexible like that. I move through, I'm constantly moving through changes, right? And I'm used to it. I like it. Adversity is fine. I'm fine with adversity. So when you move through adversity, when you move through changes, you change. You become a different version of yourself. And if you've entered into this marriage contract or a business contract or any kind of contract, imagine taking a job and they're like, okay, till death do us part. Maybe for some people that would be a relief. You're like, oh, I don't have to do anything. I can just coast. But for others who really are here to grow and be change makers, that can be very scary, right? To have that contract. And obviously that's what's happening, because the divorce rate is like at least 50%. It's been like that for a while. It might even be more than that. And I can't remember who said it, but it was some entrepreneur I was listening to. They're like, if you had a business opportunity and there's a 1 in 2 chance of failure, would you take it? And most people wouldn't take it. Those are really high odds. But the things that we do, right? Because our movie and media culture tells us that Prince Charming's coming and we're going to have the happy ending and it's all going to be great. Now, there are some very long-term relationships that they're very successful. In my opinion, this is just my opinion, being a marriage and family therapist and working with many, 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 many different families and seeing different dynamics, different cultures, lots of different situations, is that there's some people that just commit. They commit to, no matter what, they're going to stay together, even if it means that they don't get to be themselves, even if it means they give up on their dreams, even if it means that they become a smaller version of themselves, because that's the commitment that they made. Again, if that's what your value is, more power to you. This is not about making you wrong. The other is, some people meet each other very young and they're meant to be together and they have a beautiful relationship and they're able to grow and shift and change even from a very young age all the way until the end. But what are the chances that all of us are going to meet that partner as a kid or in high school or whatever? They're not, those chances aren't that great either, right? So I think these long-term relationships a lot of times are one of those two things. And we can't measure relationship success by whether or not the relationship stays together or the length of time it's been together. I can't stress that enough, because I've seen so many dysfunctional relationships to be able to use that as a measure of success. And I've even had people say it to me, why would anybody listen to you as a marriage and family therapist if you've been through divorce and you couldn't have a successful marriage? My family is successful. My family is healthier now through divorce. That is what created health for my family. If my family would have stayed married, there would have been more dysfunction, right? And so that's really important distinction. I want to look at some of the comments. Norma's saying, this moon helped me break away of this idea. Thank you, Natasha. Oh, awesome. Mahogany Fruitarian saying, seems like it's unwise to marry. What happened when that fades? Unwise to marry for love. Listen to from the beginning again when I post this recording. because I'm not saying that. I really don't want you all to not believe in love. I believe in love, but I believe in a different kind of love than romantic love. That's just one version of love. Love is, and it goes back to my Kundalini awakening episode. Go watch that episode. What is a Kundalini awakening? And I interviewed Devante Sheard, and he talked about his story, and I shared a little bit about my story. But both of us had this experience with this Kundalini awakening, that we reconnected to this soul source. And it was this feeling of being so loved, so appreciated, so complete and whole. And I realized in that moment, that's what everybody's looking for. That's what I had been sold watching Hollywood movies I was supposed to need or feel or want. And you will feel that when you have that dopamine rush or you first meet somebody. And I'll tell you why. It's because, well, there's soul connections, but also you are projecting that desire onto that person. And if you're on dating apps or you're dating, be mindful of your projections, because relationships are always a projection. It's your desires, what you want, you start to see in the other person. What you don't want, you start to see in the other person. And you end up being really compatible with somebody whose real true self matches closely enough your projections, ironically enough. But that's why we often fall out of love after 3 months or so of that initial love, because, and that maybe that's what you're talking about, what happens when that fades, is because the projections start to fade into reality. We start seeing things that we didn't notice before, because the dopamine high is less, right? And so that's when things start to get real. If people are pretending to be, if they're trying to be who you want them to be, they're not going to be able to do that anymore after 3 months. They're getting tired. They're going to default to their regular behaviors, right? So that's some of what's happening. But anyway, this feeling of connectedness and wholeness, I realized that, I no longer needed another person. And having somebody join me on my path was more about us being that accountability for each other, let's say. It's not about somebody else completing me. It's more about like, hey, friend, I see you, you see me. Let's keep each other connected to this spiritual source, this source of unconditional love, this source of love that's overflowing, and be partners in creating love. Right? So you're in for each other. And so how do you have security with that? You might make an arrangement where you have a verbal commitment or even a contract, whether that, again, be legal marriage or some other kind of contract, but you are saying, until this, you outline the parameters. For instance, my marriage vows were complete because we wrote our own vows, and we did not say till death do us part. We were more aware that likely wasn't going to be the case, even though I think we were both open to it. We said, as long as we're making ourselves and our children happy, we'll stay married. And when that was no longer the case, we got divorced. So we fulfilled our marriage vows. I'm totally at peace with it. And I believe that my ex-partner and father of my children is as well. Jess is saying, I love you, friend. Thank you. Love you too. So you get to create that, right? You get to create the terms of your relationship. Now, what's happened, I've had this happen before, where I've dated a partner who said, I want to be free. I don't believe I can be faithful to the same person my whole life. And I'm like, cool. All right. That's good to know. But also, this is what I need. Like, that's what you need, but this is what I need to feel okay in this relationship. And if you want me to be open and you want me to be into supporting you or investing in you, there has to be some sense of security and safety, right, in that relationship, that it's not just going to be thrown away one day when you get bored or whatever else. So however you can create that, that's the security piece. And like I said, open up your mind and look beyond the box of just legal marriage or marriage the way it's supposed to be, and really maybe even journal with yourself or meditate and see what is it that you really want from a relationship, and look and see, can you create those things that you want from a relationship? Can you create that yourself? And I've been up and down this a lot, and I'm pretty self-sufficient. Again, ironically, I'm talking about a new model for relationships, and I'm here doing this video by myself. I'm fine doing it by myself. But relationships offer that companionship. You can't recreate human flesh right next to you. And so if you've been longing for a relationship and you feel like you've done all your personal growth work and you've done all this and you should feel bad because you haven't been at peace being with yourself, then throw that out. I get it. I see you. I get you. We are human beings. We need touch. We need skin to skin contact. We need intimacy, emotional, physical, sexual, all of these things. It's part of being human. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in these human bodies. We'd be little energy forms floating around and dancing together and having fun together. But we're in these physical bodies to sense, to feel, taste, touch, all of these things. So don't be upset or be shamed that if you're longing for human connection, especially right now, right? But also freedom, okay? Security and freedom. I said, how do we balance both of these? And security is usually more the feminine need, and freedom is usually more the masculine need. And there's biological reasons for that. We're biologically different. We've evolved to have different biological energies and drives. Not to say that that can't shift if you're born in a male body or a female body, but when you are born with this equipment, I have a uterus right now. I have fallopian tubes. I have eggs inside of me that have eggs inside of them, so my grandchildren were inside of me. This is what a woman's body has. We are tapped into the generations that are going to come through the portal, which is our birth canal. And so we are looking to secure the space, secure the perimeter, make sure that we have help to raise our children when we are in pain, whether it's labor or we are exhausted because we're producing milk from our breasts and we are feeding our babies. I mean, I was doing all that plus working a full-time job, taking care of other people's teenagers emotionally that had severe mental health issues, right? This was a lot of energy expenditure, but it was fine because I have so much love to give. I have so much care to give, and I have so much energy because this lights me up to be able to help people. But that's the feminine. She's looking for that. She has to create that safety or that security, some sort of contract, right? The masculine, what does it, do? If you're biological male and you resonate with that masculine energy, it really is, making sure that your seed survives. But that can happen in just a couple seconds, a couple minutes, right? It's a very different process. It's not always thought through to create that safety and that security. It's more about that freedom. But the reality is, whether you're man or woman, we have need for both. We all need the need to be free. We all need security. And here we are now in a post-COVID world where we're not feeling like we have, in general, as a society, we're not feeling like we have either. We don't have freedom. A lot of people are not feeling free. And then we have things, social justice issues like Black Lives Matter coming up again too, is coming up again. People are not feeling free enough. We need more freedom, right? But also now with all this economic issue, and so you have the two are combined and related, we don't have the security. And so how do you create that in your relationships? Because once you know how to create that in your intimate relationships, society will create that. It happens on both ends, individual and collective at the same time. Mahogany Fruitarian saying, do you have a recommended reading list for growth work? Oh, tons. I have bookshelves upon bookshelves here. So just give me a topic you want to start with, message me, and I will give you some titles. But yeah, so this freedom, how do we create this freedom? Freedom to love, freedom to follow our passion, freedom to change next year, 5 years, 10 years. What happens if we have a different need that our partner can't meet? Is our partner going to allow us some freedom to have that met either by another person or another job or another town, even, another city, another energy, whatever else? These are the things that you have to negotiate and figure out as you're entering the relationship. And I know it's really easy to jump right into a relationship as soon as you feel that connection with somebody and you feel that spark and you feel that passion, and maybe you haven't felt that in a long time, and you're like, okay. Or what I see also, again, being on dating apps, um, the last few years, is like people have this idea of what they want in a relationship, and even the app will prompt you to say what it is that you want in a relationship, and that's fine. But if you're walking around with this hole in your life looking for, is it that one, is it that one, is it that one, and that's the way the apps are set up. It's like swipe, swipe, nope, swipe, swipe, swipe. It's like nobody's fitting into this peg, this space that I've created. And it's always this lack, and it's like a subtle form of objectification, because we're not seeing somebody for who they are as a soul and their desires and how they might evolve and change and grow. We're seeing them for their hair color, their weight, their height, their career, what they'll do for you. Are they going to rub your feet, or are they going to be good at cooking because you don't like to cook, and all that stuff. And again, it's okay if somebody's like that and it's a nice fit, but when you're looking for that and you're just like, okay, that's the perfect fit, that's just not how relationships work. Please stay away from objectifying other humans and look at them as a growing, breathing thing. And related to that is that a relationship between two humans is always going to be different, because every person carries with them an energy that is a whole different recipe, a whole different formula when it's a new person. Right? So this is why you might see similar patterns in your relationships, but every relationship's a little bit different. And that you can even have, that's why some relationships you really connect with somebody, but it's platonic. It's just like you could spend every day with them if you could, but it's still platonic, because that's the recipe, that's the chemistry. That's not rejection, friends. That's just the soul connection. And then sometimes that sparks into some romance, and then sometimes it dies down and goes back to friends, or sometimes it grows into the longest, best love affair there ever was. So it's always about staying open and giving each partner its space to breathe, and giving the relationship its space to breathe, right? To become what it's supposed to be, to develop and form. And other times, it's like intense passion. You've probably all experienced that too, where you have like this intensely passionate relationship for like 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden it totally dies out. It didn't have that staying power. It was just meant to be momentary. But either way, whatever connection you have. Oh, and the other thing, you might have with somebody a polyamorous relationship. Maybe you can date them and date somebody else, and it's fine. That you can be dating, which is, by the way that they did it before World War II. Almost everybody was a polyamorous dater. You just, you hung out with people, you did different dates. And then after the war, when the soldiers started to be killed and there was this fear of the population continuing, then that's when marriage was pushed again, and you just dated one person, you stayed with one person, and it was about procreation and monogamy and all of that. And so some people you can do that with. You can date other people. Other people, you're like, nope, that's my person. I don't want to date anybody else. I don't want them to date anybody else. Do you see? It's flexible. It's more flexible than we realize, because we've been operating from our subconscious. We've been operating from what we're supposed to do. You don't go to school and learn about, or church, heaven forbid, polyamory or polygamy or anything like that. Or maybe if you're Mormon, or other religions, that's more of a norm, but there's also some ownership and control pieces in there. I've known several people who have left the Mormon church traumatized because of the way that it was carried out. So I don't think polyamory is bad. I don't think monogamy is bad. I think it just depends on the two people that are, or two or more people that are into it, and are they loving relationships? Are they healthy, communicative, open relationships? So are you allowing freedom? Do you have the security? Those sorts of things. So maybe even just meditate on that. How can I create freedom and security? And I think when you're going into a relationship very consciously, noticing the other person, and then here now we've gone full circle from where I started with, when you've done your healing, When you are healed from your issues, you now have the space to notice the other person, to sit with their pain, to know what's going on with them. And until you've done that work, you're not going to notice other people because you're all caught up in your sloppy mess and whatever else is going on. And if you're continually in that space and you don't do the healing work, you'll never get to that satisfying relationship that creates this love, right? And so doing the healing work, going into relationship intentionally. And if you're out there single because you either haven't found that person that you want to date yet, or you are swapping out. I had a woman say to me today, she was trading out her dysfunctional boyfriend. Oh man, I got such a kick out of that. It was pretty funny. So she's swapping out her dysfunctional boyfriend. She's aware that, things aren't working. She's looking for a new partner. So whatever stage you're in, maybe going through divorce, whatever stage you're in right now, going into the next relationship consciously, doing things different, because there's going to be so much unconscious stuff that's going to come up, and then they're going to see it and they're going to bring it to you, and then you open up and you're like, oh yeah, okay, this, yes, you're right about that, maybe no, you're off about that, but it's a conversation, and you say, these are the values that we have. Communication, we're going to be honest with each other, we're going to be honest with each other, and we're going, no matter what, like I would rather have somebody be honest than spare my feelings, but I always say, like, be gentle, I'm sensitive, right? So be honest, but be gentle. And then can you sit with somebody else's criticisms, reflections, their stuff that you don't necessarily know what to do with? And, we want to go and fix people right away, but most of the time people just need to be heard and held and seen and loved unconditionally. So can you do that? And if you set those parameters, that whatever comes our way, and again, COVID's a great example. Nobody could have predicted this. Your relationship probably either got stronger through this, whether that was with a partner or a job or whatever, or it went away. And if it went away, hallelujah, because you just cleared space for something next level. And so be very mindful. Don't be rushing in to things and patterns and doing the same thing because it's comfortable. Because when it feels right, doesn't always mean it's right. It can feel right because it's been conditioned. It can feel right because it matches our dysfunctional family dynamic, or this guy is an asshole to the waitress just like dad, but we don't pick up on that consciously. We just know in our gut, like, oh, this feels familiar, that sort of thing. So be aware of that, and check in with your gut, check in with your guidance system, whether you're using oracles or pendulums or cards or your prayer or signs or synchronicities, whatever it is. Check in with your guidance system to know, is this something that's familiar, or is it on my soul path? And then also knowing that you can marry somebody, you can have the most beautiful love affair, you can have the most beautiful relationship, and they could die tomorrow. Nothing is guaranteed. Nothing is guaranteed. If somebody leaves you and falls in love with somebody else, they can't promise you that's not going to happen. We just don't have control of our human lives in that way. We can certainly control our behavior. We can certainly be more mindful of, the way that we behave because our partner has this issue, or they have this desire or need or whatever from us. We can be mindful of our behavior. But again, this communication. Hey, Jen, couple more people joined. Thank you guys for popping in. So if you have any questions, I know I said I would not go super long, and it's been about an hour, and done a lot of talking about, again, healing, the system, security and freedom, how to create both. I'm really, really, really excited for this next couple decades, this whole new millennium of relationships. I think we're really primed or really set up to create phenomenal relationships in a new humanity. And again, it's like learning these skills to self-regulate, manage the self, become aware of emotions, express the emotions, hold space, create safety, create a safe container in our relationships. We can navigate anything. all of these things that are going on around the world are so pointless. I mean, I see where they're coming from, but there is a solution. There is a way out. So if you find yourself getting hopeless, don't sink in there. Just start doing the work yourself. You cannot count on another country to get their shit together or another person to get their shit together. It's about, what are you doing? You need to get your shit together the best you can. And even if you've got your shit together better than 95% of the population, then you hang out with that other 5%, okay? Hang out with the people that got their shit together too, so that you can create more love, because then again, it's more healing, it's more loving, it's more things overflowing, right? And more inspiration. And so get out of those toxic relationships, heal them or get out of them. Okay. I don't want to hear any more about these dysfunctional relationships. And there's no shame. If you have a failed marriage, a failed relationship, there's no shame in that. It just means that you're getting better and better at recognizing what doesn't work for you and what's unhealthy. And by the way, if you have a hard time with that, go on the dating apps. That's great practice. I've never been on dating apps to find my significant other. I'm there to practice relating, practice human communication, practice romantic communication, practice stating my desires and my needs. And so if you feel like you need that practice and you're single, go on the dating apps, go try it out. Hire me as a coach. I'll help you through. I'll help you navigate. I'll help you say what you need to say. It's a great learning experience. Jess is saying, yes, immunity and community, like-minded folks that help you grow. Yes, and Life's Chill is saying, so insightful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, if any of you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them now. Otherwise, I will shut this down for the evening. Hey, Megan. Any questions? I'll wait for a little bit because I know it takes some time for it to transmit through the interwebs. Any questions? Questions about relationships, questions about maybe a situation you're dealing with right now, questions about how to create this relationship paradigm that I've been talking about. By the way, full disclosure, I haven't created it. I haven't found anybody that's brave enough to go there with me, to go unconventional, right? And I mean, brave enough, but also there's got to be the chemistry. So there's been folks I've had the chemistry with, and then they haven't been brave enough, or it's like people are like, yeah, let's do it, but there's not the right chemistry for me anyway. So it's still a theory, but I'm a thinker, I'm a philosopher. I've been thinking about this for a very long time. I've been collecting data. So I have some thoughts and some directions to go. Megan's saying, or if you have any questions about some of the personal stuff that I shared too. Megan's saying, how about on dating apps? Yeah, I was just talking about dating apps just before you joined. So you'll have to jump back onto the recording and rewatch. It's about, dating apps are great practice. It's a fishbowl. It's a fishbowl for relating. And, unfortunately for me, I love helping people, and I love helping people heal, and I love intimacy. Like, I'm really an intimacy junkie. And that's why I also probably kept ending up in my field, because I get to enter into really deep healing conversations with my clients, which I'm so grateful for. And I find that sometimes when I meet a wounded bird on an app, then I end up kind of moving into that role of healer rather than, potential partner. And I was speaking to a man, and he was saying he was disillusioned, which many men over the years on dating apps have told me this. They're very disillusioned. So for the guys that are watching, here's my advice for you, and for the women too, so that you can be very gentle and kind to these men. A lot of the men have told me that, they're really hurt when they get ghosted, when they start a conversation with somebody and somebody just drops off, or they don't exit. And it's not about, if you've been a decent human, you've been a good human, it's not about them rejecting you. It's not about you at all. It's about that person not having the communication skills to be able to tell you why they're leaving, or they are not really they don't really have their head in the game. They're just kind of messing around. You know what I mean? So they're just like, oh, because you have the illusion that there's all these people that are available, when the reality is that probably the majority of the folks that you're seeing on the apps that are rejecting you, or they're not liking you back, or they're not matching with you, are not emotionally or legally or physically available. Now, obviously there's the cheaters, but there's also the avoidant attachment folks that are really uncomfortable with intimacy, and so they keep cycling through these 3-month relationships, then they're single again, and then they end up back there again, and all of this stuff. So it's that emotional unattachment, or their relationship is on the rocks, so they're looking for validation or ego strokes or whatever else. So those people that you think are like, you see their profile, they look really great, like, oh, you could see, you're already dreaming about, your life together or whatever. A lot of times they're not even available, right? So you don't have to feel bad about being rejected by them. And so start to develop the communication skills. Imagine yourself in their shoes when you either unmatch with somebody or you let them down. If you're not feeling it, you can just say, hey, it's not a match for me, and I'm just really clear about what I'm here for. It can be that simple. It's not about them, but if people are feeling rejection, again, it's like things that have come up in the past, probably, that they haven't healed from. And if you're the one that's getting your buttons pushed all the time, go back and do your own healing, so you're not throwing your shit onto somebody else. And so for the women, so a lot of the men are saying that they're feeling rejected or whatnot. For the women that are on there, be kind to these guys, be gentle with them, because they're opening up. They're trying to be vulnerable, and men are shifting. They're growing really fast. Women have faced a lot of adversity and oppression, and we've been gathering in underground circles and healing circles and kind of like healing each other through sisterhood. We're more of those connectors. Men don't have those networks the same. And so they haven't really often had the spaces to really work through the stuff, or even the awareness of it, right? Even when life is a little bit easier for you on the outside, in the outside world, you don't even have the awareness of the ways that things are dysfunctional. It's like when I, went to graduate school for my master's, and I saw all the things in my family diagram. I was like, dang, we don't look very good on paper. I thought we were pretty awesome. But every family sees that. It's a totally different thing when you start analyzing and looking at, all the things. So men are vulnerable. They're sensitive, especially to the feminine. And so if you're a woman and you're being mean or unkind, you're creating this like new wound that he's going to guard and hole up even more, and then be more of an asshole to the next woman. So don't do that to your sisters. Don't do that to him, and don't do that to your sisters. Every person that you date, even if it's not a match for you long term, you're creating a better human for their future partner. Okay. So if I date a man and I'm gentle with him, and I have compassion, and I allow space for him to open up and experience something he's never experienced, but it doesn't work out for me, or it's not in our future to be together, I've now helped him step up into a bigger version of his manhood to be there for another one of my goddesses. And he's done the same for me. He's allowed me to work through some stuff, work through some triggers, work through some buttons, work through some issues. And that's how we do it. You should leave people better than you found them. Okay. And then we eventually find that match that we're right for each other. And so you have to do this work in relationship. It's some of it is on your own, but then you have to go back into relationship to do this work. Life's Chill is saying, how would you say is the best way to work on developing that philosophy of yourself without over empathizing? I often find myself in the healer role than lover because I always want to help. Yeah, right? I know, that's what I'm just talking about. I think when you, and I'm speaking to myself as well as you, but when you find yourself in the healer role rather than lover role, it means it's not a fit. You guys are on different levels. You're coming in to be the healer, and there's a lot of folks on because if you were on the same level, you wouldn't be popping into that healer role. It would be, and if you were temporarily, it would go back and forth like this. That's how it works. So that, just use that to show like, oh, that person's not ready for you yet, not ready for where you're at. And also, when you're the healer, Are you continually attracting these, and again, I'm speaking to myself, these relationships that have some growing to do? Because for you to actually be with your equal match, that would be, you'd have to really be vulnerable, right? You really have to open up and be vulnerable. So is there a little bit of guarding, even on that end? But that's just another thing to explore. But yeah, if you're the one that's always the healer, you're always the teacher, you're always the leader, that sort of thing, you're probably a little bit mismatched, and that relationship isn't going to last very long anyway, in my opinion, because it's going to be lopsided and you're not going to have your needs met. And then as far as empathizing, again, it's boundaries. It's like, I could give my energy. I've got lots of energy to give. I could give my energy to a lot of folks, but is that my goal? Like, am I here to do free healing work, or am I here to take care of my children and grow my business and create something that even more people can benefit than this one person that I met on a dating app, or that this lost bird that, needs just somebody to listen. And I'm not saying you don't give them a few minutes of your time, but they don't become your client. They don't become your project. And an example is in the movie Wonder Woman, when, she's really clear that she has to go to the front lines of the battlefield. And she sees the woman and her baby crying, and she's like, she wants to stop to help them. And they're like, no, we have to go. We have to go. And you could see her compassion is there, but she's very clear on her mission. She's clear on what it is that she's there to do, and how she has to best use that compassion and love. So I think that's a great question, and something for us, all of us healers, all of us empaths, to meditate on. Life's Chill says, and yep, that's exactly what happened. Aha, right. What's truly the long-term goal. Yeah. And here's the other thing that's a reality, is that if you've been doing your work for a long time, again, you're in the, there's the population gets smaller of those people that are on your level and that you can match with. And that's kind of sad. Like, there's a grief process with that. It's like, I'm attracted to this person. Like, I really love them. Even you might really genuinely love them, and you want to be their partner. You want them to pull up and meet you, but they just can't, because they haven't been through all the growth work that you've been through. They haven't done the trauma healing work. They haven't done listening to the podcast. They haven't read the books, all that stuff. Every time you engage in personal growth, you're up leveling, and they'll never catch up. You're always going to feel like, you're dragging somebody along, or you're having to stop and attend to their pain or their trauma that they haven't yet faced or moved through. And it's very, very sad. It's very sad to be in that situation, because you want to just love them, but it's about finding people that are on your level. And if you have people like that in your life, send them to me. I'll put them in a group. We'll the Mind Body Skills group that I'm doing. It's a very quick and efficient up leveling as far as that personal growth work. It really cracks people open. All right. Any other questions? If you have them, send them. Thank you for the hearts, y'all. I really appreciate that. This eclipse energy, man, earlier today, I was overstimulated, really overstimulated. I even wondered this morning, like, should I be outside underneath this eclipse? And then I was going to this moon circle. And as I was driving down, I already felt the anxiety coming on. And I was like, oh, shoot, there's no reason for me to be anxious right now. And there's something that I'm not supposed to engage in. I got there and it just kept growing and growing. And, but I'm feeling the drive home was healing. It was helpful. All right. Well, I guess that's it. Thank you all for joining in, even though I went on a little bit later on the fly. I'll be reposting this. It's also live on YouTube right now, so you can find it. I usually post the link in bio right away after I repost this. If you want to rewatch it, send it to a loved one, send it to a family member, send it to a friend. I would absolutely love your support in getting some of this information out there. And also sign up for my newsletter, natashaedwina.com, it's just my name.com, also link in bio. And you can stay up to date with some of my offerings. And then I email out the recordings of these YouTube videos each week. I go live every Monday at 7 p.m. The Spiritual Sexual Empowerment Show. Next week, what are we doing next week? I can't remember. I blanked. December's been a little bit flexible, but we will be going live next week as well, Monday at 7. So yeah, sign up for the newsletter. If you're interested in my 10-week Mind Body Skills group, send people, please send them in. Let me take care of them. If you're interested in joining, I would love to have you as well. You can reach me on my website or in the DMs here on Instagram at natasha.edwina. All right, you all, thank you for joining. Let's see, Life's Chill saying thank you for all the insight. Absolutely, thanks for coming. Thank you, Megan. Thank you, everybody that's here. I will see you. Solstice. Oh, yes, 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 yes. That's coming up. Big energy shifts. I hope you're as excited as I am. We got this. We're creating a new humanity. All right. Good night, everyone. Okay, and YouTube, you're still hanging in there. Oh, all right. I will see you next Monday as well. I hope you enjoyed this. I certainly enjoyed talking with you all. Thank you all for your comments as well. All right. Good night.